Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm back with another video. It is January 7th, and first of all, of course, this is the Russian Orthodox Christmas, and I have a number of Russian friends who celebrate Christmas on this day, so I want to wish them a happy, Merry Orthodox Christmas. But today I want to emphasize what is going on in Venezuela, and I think I'll be echoing what a lot of people talk about, but I want to maybe take it from a slightly different angle in that I'm starting off this post with a video by a fellow named Nicholas Reed. Nicholas Reed is a Canadian who has moved to Moscow, moved to Russia, and he now works for the Russian media network RT, formerly known as Russia Today. And he's a really fine young guy. And he's just married a Russian woman who's a wonderful singer. And I had the opportunity to spend time with him when I was in Russia last time. And he's a really great person. So he has just recorded a short video. And he's standing in front of the statue of Simon Bolivar. And what I think is so interesting about this is the fact that Russia it looks like a regular European country. You know, the people, if you didn't know any better, you see somebody and, you know, they've got white skin oftentimes. Of course, there's many people from Central Asia, and there's people of Mongolian extraction and so on. It is a multi-ethnic country, but there are a lot of ethnic Russians. And so they look like, you know, just regular people. And of course, there's a lot of ethnic Russians who live in the West as well. I mean, I was born. My grandparents were all born in Eastern in the Western Russian Empire. So I'm Russian too, but maybe you never know it. Of course, now that you've been listening to my podcast and so on, you probably think, yeah, well, you know, he's just a Putin puppet. But no, these are my ideas. I think for myself. Anyway, so he and you know, this what we're seeing here is tremendous solidarity with the Venezuelan people, and I've got three citations just to point that out. So Nicholas was in Moscow in front of this statue, and he's you know. There's a number of people, I guess, from Venezuela who are living in Moscow. A lot of Venezuelans, of course, study at Russian universities, and you know, Venezuela has benefited tremendously because of Russia's support for Venezuela. And I like to point out that when I say that the reason why Russia is civilizationally different from European countries is because it didn't go around the world, you know, colonizing. You could say that it colonized the Yakuts and Buryats and so on, and people from Central Asia. But they didn't oppress them in the brutal way that the European powers and the North Americans, who, you know, genocided virtually their entire native population, not completely, but almost completely genocided. That has never been the policy of Russia, and quite to the contrary. When the United States was just becoming a country and wanted to free itself from the King of England, the King of England asked the Russian Empress, I believe it was Empress Ekaterina, to send some mercenaries to you know, beat up us American revolutionaries. And she said, well, that's a great idea, but no, we don't think we'll do that. And instead, she was actually trading with us. And then during the Civil War, the Russian Tsar was sending ships to protect San Francisco and New York, I believe. And basically, they said to England, you know, we know what you want to do. You want to break up the United States. You want to have the South as a slave colony, and we're not interested in pursuing that policy of yours. So we're going to protect the United States. from your blockade. And if you try to blockade the United States, you're going to be fighting Russia too. So this is why I think the West has a visceral hatred towards Russia, because it is essentially an anti-colonial power. I mean, you go to Moscow, thinking, who are the two most prominent statues there that are still there, despite the fall of the Soviet Union, are Simon Bolivar, who freed South America, and Karl Marx. So Russia is a kind of a different country in that sense. And so I've posted a clip. It's not too long of Nicholas Reed talking about his experience with the Venezuelan people who seem to be successfully resisting this brutal takeover of Venezuela. The second point that I wanted to bring up was Pepe Escobar, who is a fantastic journalist, personal, acquaintance of mine. Because you could say I'm a friend of his. I'm not in his inner circle of friends, so to speak, but we know each other. And he refers to Donald Trump as Caligula, who was a brutal emperor of Rome. But oddly enough, before I had even seen his article, I was comparing Trump to Julius Caesar, because I studied Latin in high school. I went to Boston Latin School, where we actually got a classical education, and we read Caesar's Gallic Wars. We read it in the original Latin. It was something like, Gaul is separated into three sections. Gallia est in tripartes. I don't remember the Latin now, but it was basically, he was talking about what is present-day France. But what Caesar did, was he went into France, he invaded it, and he had basically surrounded a major settlement, you could say the center of the resistance to the Roman conquest of the country. And the people were on the verge of starvation, and the leader was named Vercingetorix. And there's actually a movie you can see about this, very interesting movie, where Vercingetorix basically prostrates himself in front of Caesar and says, "I give up, take me to Rome, humiliate me, kill me, whatever you want, please don't genocide my whole people." And so Caesar takes him back to Rome in chains and parades him through the streets of Rome. And I thought, this is exactly how Trump is treating Maduro. He's taking him back, parading him around in chains to humiliate and intimidate the Venezuelan people. And fortunately, the Venezuelan people, the vast majority of them, we're not told this, but I've seen a number of video clips of thousands and thousands of Venezuelans on the streets following this attack, what can I call it, perfidious attack, treacherous attack on Venezuela, taking their president away. And Maduro is in court, and they say, "What do you plead, guilty or not guilty?" And Maduro doesn't say not guilty. He says, "I am the president of Venezuela, and I am here as a prisoner of war." And so his lawyer says he's not guilty. He's pleading not guilty, but he got that dig into the American empire. Don't give me this crap about what am I guilty of? The case that they've taken against Maduro is already falling apart, because I wrote a letter to my congressperson, who is spouting the usual bullshit Republican party line about how bad Maduro is a dictator and so on and so forth, and a drug dealer. And he says, like, the Department of the Drug Enforcement Agency says there's very little evidence that Venezuela is involved in the drug trade, and independent observers of the election showed that Maduro was duly elected. And the fact that you've got tens of thousands of people on the street supporting Maduro, even his opponents, They may not like Maduro because of some of his policies, but they are patriotic about their country, and they do not appreciate, daddy, daddy mafia boss, the gringos up in North El Norte, to be dictating to their country what they're going to do with their resources. Trump says they stole our resources. No, Venezuela paid off the companies to nationalize them. It's just like they bought out the ownership interest of these companies that had these resources, and for the benefit of the Venezuelan people. And for Trump to say they stole it is just an absolute lie. It's outrageous. So anyway, so I just wanted to point that out, that there's a kind of a direct line between this kind of Roman colonial imperial mentality that we saw in the Roman Empire, which was ruthless, and what the United States is becoming, or has become, and there's going to be consequences for this. So that's the second item source that I cite on this article. And the third is a video that Jeffrey Sachs presents to the United Nations. And he was invited to the United Nations to address them as a U.S. citizen, and he is absolutely scathing towards the U.S., what the U.S. has done in Venezuela, and rightfully so. So I thought that I would just present those three items, and a Canadian person in Moscow with Venezuelan people, Pepe Escobar, who is a world-class journalist who covers essentially Asia, and Jeffrey Sachs has been quite courageous in his criticism of U.S. policies, both in Ukraine and now, of course, in Venezuela. So I think we should, pay attention to what these people have to say, and I hope you'll share this, because, there's just what I observe, and I've talked about this many times, is the fact that people in the West are so propagandized. The major media is just so pervasive and intrusive to the public discourse that people oftentimes have no idea what is going on. Now, I'm hearing that the American people are generally against this misadventure in Venezuela, and that's a very good thing. But we really need to build up this, the main issue is that we really need to rebuild a peace movement that takes down this imperialistic government. And it's not just, it's from a moral point of view, it is our responsibility of citizens of the United States to stop the war machine, which has been pursuing these endless wars for decades. But it's not just out of moral responsibility. The fact is that this empire is bleeding the U.S. People, the United States people, to death because our education is falling, the healthcare system is failing, the housing market is out of control, inflation. I think I don't have to repeat the litany. I'm sure many of you understand this, that we have serious problems in this country, and we really need to, as we say, take our country back. And the politicians have completely failed us. When I see these emails from, my representative in California, Kevin Kiley, and spouting this nonsense. And I wrote him back. I said, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You think you're doing the people of Venezuela a favor. You are inviting a new Vietnam, and you're going to destroy that country, and you're going to wreck ours at the same time. And you call yourself you think you're a representative of the people. You're not representing anybody. You're representing the people who pay you to spout this nonsense. So, we really need to speak up about this stuff, and we need to share it and discuss it with people. And I know I talk with people, even here where I live, and there's a lot of sentiment. Oh, it's just so painful. We don't want to think about it. And, there's an expression, don't look away. We have to see and take responsibility for the difficulties that we face. Denial is not a solution to the problem. So that's basically my message in this relatively short video. I hope that you'll take a look at the the video by Nicholas Reed, and also the video by Jeffrey Sachs, and of course the quote by Pepe Escobar is also fine as well. But you listen to what these people have to say, and then that hopefully will energize you to take action and engage people that your friends and family and acquaintances, so that we can turn the situation around, because it's not getting better. So that's what I have to say. Thanks again for supporting my channel. Of course, if you can, please like and share it, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel, that would be wonderful. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk with you soon.